So we're in the original edition, chapter 2, section 3, fear is a lack of love. And we are on into that section, starting at the paragraph that says, everyone experiences fear, but nobody enjoys it. That's an interesting sentence, huh? Everybody experiences fear, nobody enjoys it. Interesting statement of the obvious. Then it says, yet it would take very little right thinking to know why fear occurs. Why does fear occur? Why does my fear occur? Why does my fear occur? Well, he says, neither you nor B. Now, mind you, now by the way, I'm reading in the text, which still has everything that the original edition has, but the text is the version before the original edition, where all the comments that the author is making to the scribes are included, which I just love. I love how we get to hear the author's little comments to the scribes, meaning the scribe is Helen, she's writing it, okay, and Bill Thetford is her helper who's helping her to receive it, organize it, and to keep going even when her resistance comes up, okay?
Is that what B is?
Yes, and that's B, Bill, and then H is Helen. Okay, so if you hear me reading a little comment that's not in yours that sounds a wee bit snarky, then that's the voice of our teacher speaking to us. That's really funny. Hello. Okay. Hey you. So the original edition, there's two right there on there if you need it. And they are both marked with a yellow thing. And we're on the paragraph that starts, everyone experiences fear and nobody enjoys it. So, for the last few sections, we've heard at least two causes of fear. This is a section teaching us about the anatomy of fear. The anatomy of fear, where does it come from? What is it? How to correct it. So the first thing that we learned about fear in this section was that one of the first sources of fear is it comes when your mind is split. Your will is divided, okay? You haven't made up your mind about what you want or what is true. You haven't made up your mind. And so since your will is split, and sometimes you want love, and sometimes you want fear, sometimes you want love, and sometimes you want attack, then what happens is you can either do conflicting things one after the other and experience conflict and fear, or you can do what you think you should, but without wholly wanting to do so. Okay, which produces internal conflict and rage and then fear. Okay, so that's the first place that fear arises from, according to this section. Okay, split mind. He says, and until you've made up your mind, fear means you haven't made up your mind. I haven't decided what I want. You know, I haven't decided that all I want is the will of God. All I want is the truth. I haven't decided that yet. So I'm going back and forth, which produces conflict, which produces rage, and then fear. Okay, that's number one. The second one that we heard last week is that fear comes when you have thought a loveless thought. You have thought lovelessly, and so you are acting lovelessly, and that's where the fear has come, because you had a loveless thought about somebody or yourself. And then he says, and the only remedy for fear is to say first, when you feel that discomfort, when you feel that fear, when you feel discomfort, discomfort means fear, say to yourself, this is fear. I know this is fear. And then you say to yourself, fear comes from a lack of love. And then you have to tell yourself, the only remedy for a lack of love is perfect love. And then perfect love is the remedy. He's saying that's the remedy for fear. That was one of the remedies for fear that this section gives. Okay? First one, split mind, conflicting will. Second one is loveless thoughts. And now he's going to talk about the third cause of fear. Where does that fear that you experience come from? And how to have it be undone. Okay? So it says, everyone experiences fear and nobody enjoys it. Yet it would take very little right thinking to know why fear occurs. Now here's a comment of the author to the scribes. Neither you nor me have thought about it very much either. Okay, I'm going to skip this next sentence there. And then the author says, this real grammatical error makes, I'm just going to read it because it's interesting. Now, the author is going to make a comment to Helen, the scribe, okay? This is in the text. It's not in the edition you have in front of you, okay? This is what Helen says, okay? The author just said, everybody experiences fear and nobody enjoys it, and it would take very little right thinking to understand why it occurs. And then he says to them, neither of you have thought about why fear occurs very much. That's what the author says to the two scribes. And then this is what Helen says. Helen goes, I object at this point to the use of plural verb with a properly singular subject, HS, and remember that last time in a very similar sentence he said it correctly and I remembered it with real pleasure. This real grammatical error makes me suspicious of the genuineness of these notes. Thank you, Helen. Isn't that great to hear Helen's ego? Isn't that sweet? He made a grammatical error and that makes me suspicious of these notes. Well, says Helen's ego. I love it how she includes that in there, okay? And then here is the author's reply to Helen. Okay, I love it. He goes, answer. What it really shows, Helen, is that you are not very receptive. Oh. Then he goes on to say, the reason that it came out that way is because you are projecting, in the inappropriate way, your own anger. Isn't that nice? He's talking about, you didn't get it because you are projecting your own anger. He says, which has nothing to do with these notes. And then the author says, you made the error because you are not feeling loving. You made the error around the grammar and the suspicion. You made that error because why? Because you are not feeling loving. So you want me to sound silly so you won't have to pay attention. Well, isn't he being the little truth bitch with her? Wow, you made that grammatical error and you became suspicious because you are feeling unloving and you want me to sound silly so that you won't have to pay attention. Woo-hoo! God, how often do we do that to our internal teacher? Wow, our internal teacher gives us an answer, gives us a beautiful answer, and we're like, your grammar was off. I know that couldn't have been spirit. So that I don't have to pay attention. I love it. And then the author says to Helen, actually, I'm trying to get through against considerable opposition. Why? Because you are not very happy, and I wish you were. Wow, isn't that great? He's saying, I am trying to get through very considerable opposition. Why is it? Because you are not very happy. And anyone who talks about having met Helen, they say she, she wasn't the most happy-go-lucky kind of gal. She was kind of sharp. She had issues experiencing joy, happiness. Isn't that interesting? And I love it how he addresses, he's trying to get through to her through very considerable opposition. He goes, because you're not very happy and I wish you were. He goes, and then the author says, I thought I'd take a chance even though you are so resistant because I might be able to make you feel better. And then he says to Helen, you may be unable not to attack at all, but do try to listen a little too. Isn't that great? Isn't that sweet to hear how he talks to her? He's trying to, get his message through, but she is presenting considerable obstacles to hearing the message. That's also why Bill was crucial in that process of receiving this material. Because had it been just her and her own ego, probably wouldn't have happened. Right? Because she was so resistant. Wow. It's interesting. He goes, I thought I'd take a chance even though you are so resistant, because I might be able to make you feel better. Very interesting. Okay. Then it goes on to what is in the original edition, okay? So then this is just the words of the author, okay? Then it says, very few people appreciate the real power of the mind. Okay, again, explaining how and why fear occurs. How and why fear occurs. Why is it? Well, like this. Very few people appreciate the real power of the mind. Oh, that's why fear comes about? Okay. Then it says, and nobody remains fully aware of the real power of the mind all the time. And this is inevitable in this world. Why? Because the human being has many things he must do and cannot engage in constant thought watching. That's in the text and not even in the original. Do you notice that? Why is it that very few people remain aware of what? Of the real power of the mind? Because the human being has many things he must do and cannot engage in constant thought watching. So I don't know the real power of my mind because I'm so busy. I'm too busy to watch my mind. I'm so busy to watch my mind, even though that's the most important thing in my experience and determining every single aspect of my world, my life, my body, everything. But I'm too busy engaged in too many things to watch my mind. That's why I don't appreciate the real power of my mind. However, if you hope to spare yourself from fear, there are some things you must realize and realize them fully, at least some of the time. And that's in the text and not the original. You want to spare yourself unnecessary fear, you want to spare yourself more fear, there's something you got to realize. And you got to realize it fully, at least sometimes. Meaning at least sometimes practice that awareness. What awareness? That my mind is very, very, very powerful. Okay? All right. Then it says, here's the other thing you need to know about the mind if you want to spare yourself more fear. You need to know this. The mind is a very powerful creator, which means your mind never loses its creative force, which means your mind never sleeps, which means every instant your mind is creating and always as you will. Every instant your mind is creating, every instant your mind is creating and always creating what? What you will, what you want. And you need to know that. It never sleeps. It never sleeps. And also, it's creating every instant. Wow. Interesting. It never loses its creative force. And it's always creating every instant, and it's always creating what you want. Every instant, it's creating what you want. Every instant, it's creating what you want. You need to realize it fully, at least sometimes, if you're going to spare yourself more pain, more fear. Isn't that interesting? Oh, you want to get rid of fear? You want to cure this fear? You got to realize something and realize it fully about the mind, your mind. Isn't that interesting?
So does that mean all the time we're either creating love or fear?
That's right.
It never stops.
Ever.
I got a small clue how little of it's love.
How little? Oh, yes. Small clue.
I mean, it's like...
Yeah. Yes. Small clue, how little. Exactly.
All of these minds.
Exactly. It's always creating. It never sleeps. Every instant it's creating, and it's always creating what you want. And there's only two options of the things you want. Love or fear. Your will or God's. What you want by yourself or God's will. Interesting. Then
sure
he says,
explains why the world seems such a dangerous place, doesn't it?
Exactly. And have you noticed how, so now if our mind is creating every instant and every instant it's creating what we want and it never sleeps, then you would think that we might want to practice a wee bit more mind watching, which is what we're getting to. That's what he's getting to in this section. about the process of learning how to watch your mind so that your mind isn't this black hole, this void, this abyss that you don't even know what's in there. You don't even know what's in there. Why? Because you don't watch it. I don't watch it. And then he's going to want to talk about why you don't watch it. Right? Okay. But if you want to spare yourself more pain and fear, you've got to learn, you've got to realize something very crucial about the mind, the truth about the mind. He says, many of your ordinary expressions reflect this. For example, when you say, oh, don't give it a thought, you are implying that if you don't think about something, it will have no effect on you, and this is true enough. On the other hand, many other expressions are clear expressions of the prevailing lack of awareness of thought power. Oh, really? What shows the prevailing lack of awareness of thought power? Well, for example, you may say, oh, that was just an idle thought, and you mean that the thought has no effect. And you also speak of some actions as, oh, that was just thoughtless, implying that if the person had thought, he would not have behaved as he did. You also use phrases like thought-provoking, which is bland enough. This is in the urtext, but not the original. But the term a provoking thought means something quite different. And he says, while expressions like think big give some recognition to the power of thought, they still come from nowhere near the truth. Because you don't expect to grow when you say think big, because you don't really believe it. It's hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. Indeed. This is where we left off last week. It says, it's hard for us to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. It's hard, right? And then he says, why? Well, it appears at first glance that to believe such powers about yourself is merely arrogant, right? I don't want to, at first blush, it seems like I don't want to believe that because that seems arrogant. That my thought and belief combined can move mountains. It seems so arrogant. But that's not the real reason why you don't believe it, why you find that hard to believe. He says the real reason is that you don't believe in the power of your thought and belief combined. The real reason is that people prefer to believe that their thoughts cannot exert real control because people are literally afraid of their thoughts. That's why I find it very hard to believe that my thoughts and my belief can combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. Not because I think it's arrogant, because I'm afraid of my thoughts. I don't want them to have power because I know what some of them are. And I don't want those to have any real power. I don't want them to exert any real control. That's why I don't believe my thoughts have power. That's why I don't use my mind. That's why I don't use my thoughts to control my fear. That's why I don't use my thoughts first to get me out of a conflict or to get me out of a jam. I don't use my thoughts first and my belief because I'm afraid of my thoughts, so much so I'd rather they not really have power. Because if these thoughts have power, then guess what those thoughts have? I don't want that. Okay? Yeah, interesting. This is the reason why we're afraid. This is the reason why we don't know the power of our mind. We don't watch our mind. And we don't use our thoughts as first go-to when we're afraid or in conflict. Okay? We're afraid of them, so we don't watch them. Isn't that interesting?
It's kind of amazing that where he says exert control. Mm-hmm. We all know that nothing but our thoughts make all our choices. We all know that.
That's right. Logically, we go, yes.
That is exerting control right there.
Right.
Chooses everything you say and do.
That's exactly right. Logically, we do recognize that obviously my thoughts have to come before my choices. But what we will we will try to deceive ourselves and go, well, that was instinct. I wasn't thinking, that was thoughtless, just like he was saying. That's an example of our fear of our thoughts. You go, oh, that was just thought. That was just an idle thought. I didn't really mean that. I was just kidding, right? So he's saying that that's where that comes from. And then it says, therapists try to help people who are afraid of their own death wishes by depreciating the power of the wish. Therapists even attempt to, quote, free the patient by persuading the patient that the patient can think whatever they want without any real effect at all. Okay? So that's how therapists might try to help a patient who is experiencing a death wish. Okay? And I think that they bring that up, the whole death wish thing here, because there's a very popular concept in modern psychotherapy that all of the ego and all of the conflict essentially comes from fear of death, which then produces a death wish. Okay, so that's a psychological concept in modern psychology, maybe even earlier psychology. He goes, but there is a real dilemma here, which only the true right-minded can escape. Death wishes do not kill in the physical sense, but death wishes do kill spiritually. Does it say that in the original? Does it say death wishes do kill spiritually? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then that interesting. Death wishes don't necessarily kill the body, but they do kill spiritually. Interesting.
What do you think that means? I don't think he means that you can kill your spirit.
Right. Exactly. But it's a wish that puts you to sleep spiritually. Okay? So, if I have a death wish, let's say I have a secret wish to die, or I have what the Course calls that fear of death, which really is at the core. It really is at the core of the ego. Let's say I have that fear of death, which then produces the death wish. Fear of death produces a death wish. Why? To conquer death, right? In your mind. And if I have that wish, then notice what am I going to have to do with that wish? I'm either going to have to face it and go, whoa, I have a death wish. Oh, wow. I'm either going to have to look at that thought and bring it to the light for correction, or what's my only other option? Go to sleep about the power of the mind. Deny the power of my mind. Okay? Let's say I have a wish to attack. Let's say I have rage. Let's say I have intense burning rage in there for something or somebody. My only two options are to go, wow, I have rage. I have a wish to hurt somebody or something and bring it to the light, or I can make my mind seem impotent and put my mind to sleep so that I don't see that I have that, or so that I make my mind impotent, I put it to sleep. Wow, those are my two options. Wow, relative to the death wish or the ego. All right. Then it says, all destructive thinking is dangerous. Given a death wish, a man has no choice except to act upon his thought or behave contrary to that death wish thought. A man can thus choose only between homicide and fear. That's interesting. So if you have attack thoughts, okay? Oh, I don't have a death wish. I don't have a death wish. Oh, I don't have a death wish. Well, do you have attack thoughts? Do you have rage? Do you have attack thoughts against yourself? Do you ever have a thought, boy, I'd be better off dead? Or, they'd be better off without me. Or, I sure wish they weren't around. Anybody have any thoughts like that? I will admit it for everybody. Okay? So, if you have a death wish, there's only one or two things a man can do. You can either kill or avoid that thought and hide that thought, which means behave contrary to it. Isn't that interesting? So you can either act on it or fear it. Two great options. That's what the ego says. You got those rage thoughts, you got that anger, you got that self-hatred, you got that hatred for others. Here's your two options. You can either attack and act on it, or don't act on it but become afraid of your mind. Like, whoa, what's going on in there that I could have such angry, rageful thoughts? Right? Those are the two options if you're not going to bring what's in your mind to love for correction. And how is it that you bring the things in your mind for correction? You have to watch your mind. You have to acknowledge the power of your mind and watch it, and watch it. That's your only other option. Whew. Interesting stuff, huh?
And most of us aren't even aware of that option of bringing it for correction.
That's exactly right. That's it. So what we do before we become conscious is we either act out our attack thoughts, which is the same thing as acting out our death wish, or we don't do it, and we just fear it, and we just shove it down into the unwatched mind. We just shove it down, shove it down, shove it down. I don't want to see my mind. We've been using our mind as a trash can for our ego thoughts, for our death wishes, for our anger, for all the things that don't look good. You know, all the things that aren't loving. Instead of going, wow, I'm afraid because I've got these loveless thoughts and it's producing fear and pain for me, and I'm going to ask for the correction of my loveless thoughts. Oh, I'm going to choose perfect love thought. Instead of doing that, we just take those fearful, angry, death thoughts, whether it's wishing someone else dead or wishing ourselves dead, and we shove them into the unwatched mind, which is another term in here for the unconscious. And then we try to make sure that we don't recognize the power of our thinking, and we don't understand our mind. We don't know it. We don't understand its power. I don't know my mind. What mind? I only react to what happens to me. Wow, I'm not at choice. Interesting. I act like I don't have a mind. I act like I'm just a big old reactor. I don't act like I'm responding to my mind. I act like I'm only responding to what's happening to me. Which is the same thing as saying, I don't really know what's in my mind. Interesting. Well, I don't want to be like that anymore. I don't want to be just like a big nuclear reactor. Things happen, poof, I explode. Things happen, poof, I react. I'm tired of living like that. Wow. It's inefficient and it's very painful. Interesting. Okay. Then it says the other possibility, so there's two possibilities. You can either act out your ego attack thoughts, or you can suppress them, or the other possibility is that you depreciate the power of your thought, which is what we were just talking about. That's the other possibility when you've got those ego, anger, attack thoughts. And depreciating the power of your thought, that's the usual psychoanalytic approach. Okay? What's the usual psychoanalytic approach? Well, it's just your thoughts. And so what if you think it doesn't mean anything? It doesn't have any real power. So what if you have a death wish? So what if you hate your mother? So what if you hate your father? So what? It's not doing anything. That's the usual, typical psychoanalytic approach. Now, saying, oh, well, it doesn't matter what you think, it doesn't have any power to do anything, that does put off or allay your guilt, but at the cost of rendering your thinking impotent. Wow. If you believe that what you think is ineffectual, you may cease to be overly afraid of what you think, but you are hardly likely to respect what you think either. And the world is full of endless examples of how man has depreciated himself because he is afraid of his own thoughts. The world is full of what kind of examples? Endless examples of how we depreciate our mind, how we depreciate ourself, how we depreciate our power. Why? Because we're afraid of our own thoughts. And in some forms of insanity, thoughts are glorified. I'm so great. I'm so awesome. I'm so awesome. I'm so great. Thoughts are glorified, but this is only because the underlying depreciation was too effective for tolerance. Wow. Okay. So mostly what man is doing, what humans are doing, is endless forms of depreciating ourselves, depreciating our power, depreciating our thoughts, depreciating our power. What, me have power? I didn't make this happen. I can't just say what I want and experience it. Me? What? No. No. I feel whatever people make me feel. I don't have any power. See all the ways that we depreciate our power. We depreciate the power of our own mind. I didn't make myself feel that feeling. I didn't make this situation happen exactly as it happened. It happened to me. It made me feel what I feel. And the world is full of endless examples of that, right? That's what we call human thinking, basically. Human thinking generally is we feel and experience what happens to us, not what we have chosen of our own volition. Wow. That's us depreciating our power over and over and over and over because we're afraid of the anger, ego thoughts in our minds that we won't look at. Whew. Interesting. If you're not going to look at them, you got to project them. All right. How does it feel to hear these thoughts about the power of the mind? What does that feel like to hear that about the mind? The thing it's saying you got to realize about your mind if you want to escape more ego world.
Yeah, I'm responsible for my reality. I'm responsible for how I feel, how I act, and what I manifest.
Nice. Yeah, that's you reclaiming the power of your mind. That's you stopping depreciating yourself. Whew. Wow.
It makes me wonder, how do you get back in charge of that?
That's right.
You know?
Exactly. How do you reverse that? And that's what this is all about. How do you reverse that? That's what the whole curriculum is about. Okay, well, if you want to stop depreciating your power and to stop depreciating the power of your mind, the first thing that you need to realize and realize fully is your mind is a very powerful creator. It never sleeps. It's creating every instant, and every instant it's creating exactly what you want. That's it. And that's all that's occurring. That's the first step in reversing the trend of just being so depreciated to the point where you just end up feeling like, like you are nothing, like you have nothing, you have no power, like you're just a victim of the world. Wow, that's the first step. My mind is very powerful. It never sleeps. It's always creating every instant, and every instant it's creating only what I want. That's the first step back out, right, of human thinking, which has got us into this mess called a planet that's a mess. That is a very fearful place, despite having some very pretty places. It's still a scary place. This is why, right? And this is also the answer about how to create a world that's safe and happy and fulfilling, where everybody has enough.
So I said that wrong. It's not how do I get back in charge, it's how do I change what I want. Because I've already been in charge.
Thank you. Exactly. It's just a matter of recognizing the power of my mind and deciding once again what I want. The one thing I want, so that my mind isn't split about what I want. Right? And now...
Changing a statement into a question.
And what's the statement?
Well, a statement is more of an ego position, where a question opens you up for divine intervention.
Exactly. So the statement might be, look what's happening to me again. And then the question is, what is it that I really want now? Okay, it's like the Course says like this, whenever you're in a jam, and there's conflict, and there's pain, and there's fear, this is what he says to do, and I love this formula. He says, don't judge, just stop and ask for what you really want now. I love that. Okay, don't judge, don't judge, don't judge, don't judge. Because my ego's just tempted to go, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I'm in this again. Why is this happening to me? Blah, blah, blah. They do it all the time. He said, don't judge what's happening. Just stop and remember, say, and ask yourself what you want now. Okay, obviously that happened because, okay, obviously my split mind. I'm sure I'm going to get erratic results. I got to split mind. But what do I want now? Okay, right now I only want perfect love. Right now I only want forgiveness. Right now I only want the will of God. That's all I want. That's all I'm going to think about. And that's the correction. That's the corrective formula. Don't judge. Just ask what you want. Now.
Sometimes you can't even get to that point where you say that you know what you want. So
Right.
you have to ask,
That's
what
right.
is it that I want?
Right, exactly. And for me, the Course helps me to remember what I really want,
Right.
that I've forgotten.
Well, sometimes in those periods, you don't want peace, you don't, or you
That's
think
right.
you don't want
That's
peace.
exactly right.
Because being right is more important than having peace.
That's exactly right. In those moments that you don't have peace, but you don't want to ask for something, you don't want to ask for peace, it's because you don't want peace, because you prefer being right to being happy. Exactly. And if you can just even get to that and go, okay, that's what I'm doing, that's a miracle too. And then that's the beauty of this curriculum, because you can be in that state where you don't want peace, and so you aren't willing to stop and remember what you really want instead. And then you can read this and it reminds you what you really want. And then it reminds you what to say to ask for what you really want. That's the brilliant, beautiful gift of this particular curriculum. So that I do get myself into that jam where I don't want peace, and I so don't want peace that I don't even want to ask. I don't even want to ask. I don't even want to practice my lesson. But for some reason, I've created a habit of reading the Course, and then that does it for me. It reminds me.
Because there's usually a payoff in your projection, like a dopamine rush or whatever.
Yeah, there's always a payoff in the projection. There's always a payoff, absolutely. All right. Okay, so he says, the truth is that there are no idle thoughts. What does that mean? That means all thinking produces form at some level. That's what it means to say there's no idle thoughts. Now, I don't know if this next sentence is in the original edition, so you tell me if it's not. The reason why people are afraid of ESP and so often react against ESP is because people know that thought can hurt them. How is it that people know that thought can hurt them? Because their own thoughts have made them vulnerable. And interesting. Does it have that in there in ESP, about ESP in the original? Okay. Because remember, this is the text I'm reading from. Okay. So, interesting. Ever had any fears about ESP? Ever heard about people having ESP and we're like, please, ESP, that is so airy-fairy, that is so ridiculous. Okay, that's coming from a fear of ESP. Why would somebody be afraid of extrasensory perception? They would be afraid of it because they know that thoughts can hurt them, because they know what their thoughts have done to them. They know their thoughts have made them feel vulnerable. Wow.
And also the ego has so much invested value in, your five senses.
That's right. That's exactly right. Exactly. The ego has a total investment in the five senses. Exactly. Those are the ego senses. Right.
That statement, all thought produces form at some level, is that often just makes me afraid, it creates fear? Is that the form that it makes often, or?
Yes, that's the thing that our ego's most afraid to hear. That there are no idle thoughts, meaning every thought produces form at some level, whether it's psychological, emotional, physical, psychic, whatever, right? That's the thing we're most afraid to hear, right? I don't want to know that. I don't want to know that all those thoughts I have in there that I've shoved down into the shadows because they're not very pretty. I don't want to know that those things are producing form at some level. I don't want to know that. So I sure as hell don't want to believe ESP.
So the form, that I guess was my question, I didn't say it very well. It's not always a physical thing, it could be an emotional thing.
Exactly.
Or
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. It may not be that those thoughts are producing physical results, but it may be that now I have an emotional pain or a psychic issue of some kind.
it's creating stress or anxiety or something
Yes,
like that.
exactly. Stress or anxiety, which is a more psychological manifestation. Anxiety, depression, things like that. Okay? Thank you. All right. Okay. Then the author speaks directly to the scribes and says, you and B, who complain all the time about fear, still persist in creating fear most of the time. That's what the author says to Helen and Bill. You complain about fear all the time, but you do what? But you persist in creating it most of the time. And then the author says, I told you last time that you cannot ask me to release you from fear because I know fear doesn't exist. You don't know that fear doesn't exist. And so our teacher says, if I merely intervene between your thoughts and their results, I would be tampering with a basic law of cause and effect. In fact, the most fundamental law there is in this world. That's interesting. So he's saying, if you ask me to undo your fear for you, take my fear from me, oh, take my fear from me, take my fear from me. He's saying, if I took your fear from you, I would be interfering. He said, I would be doing what? I would be intervening between your thoughts and their effect. Okay? And your thoughts and their effect is actually the most basic law in the world, cause and effect. I'd be interfering or intervening between you and your effects, the cause and your effects. Interesting. It's like a parent not letting a child learn from their own mistakes, right? If a parent never lets the child experience the consequence of their own choice, then how well does that child learn anything about cause and effect? Well, if you put your hand on the stove, it hurts, it burns. Okay? Basic law of cause and effect. But if the parent never allows the child to learn about the effects that come from the cause of their choices, then the child never learns about the most basic law. You make a choice, you get an effect. You make a choice, you get an effect. Right? And he's saying that that is crucial for us to learn. If we're ever going to stop choosing fear ourselves, then guess what? We have to be able to experience the effect of the choice, the loveless choice. Right? And he's saying, so I'm not going to intervene and take away, he says, I'm not going to come in and take away the symptom. Like, don't ask me to come take away the symptom. But I will help you to see where that symptom came from and give you a formula by which to not choose that thought which produces that symptom. How about that? Which is what a good parent would do also. Right? The good parent is going to come away and just, I'll take that symptom. Oh, I'll take that symptom. Oh, that symptom hurts. I'll take it from you. Oh, that symptom hurts. I'll take that from you. So that you don't ever have to feel the effects of your own choice. So he's saying, I'm not going to take the symptoms from you. Don't ask me to do that. Right? Because it's not in your own best interest.
I never saw it before, but he would also, if he was to interfere, take the power from out of our minds.
Absolutely. If he takes away the symptom, oh, please take away this problem, please take away this problem, it hurts, it hurts. If he takes away the problem, then I never recognize where it came from, the cause, and I never recognize just how powerful my mind is. I'll never get it. And I'll just keep depreciating myself and depreciating myself and depreciating my power.
Well, I mean, wouldn't he literally have to, if this produces this, he'd have to cancel out the power of this
That's right.
to affect that.
That's exactly right.
That which gave the mind the power would now have to make it go away.
That's
for that
exactly
to
right.
happen.
That's exactly right.
I mean, logically,
Yeah.
not
And
understanding all the laws of the universe.
exactly. And he's saying that's the most basic law, that's the most fundamental law in the world. That everything that occurs is an effect that has come from a cause in your mind. That is the most basic fundamental law in the world. What you see here, what you're experiencing here, is an effect that came from the cause in your mind, which is your choice, whether to love or not. That's the most basic fundamental law. Everything here comes from your choice. And I see too how in our relationships also, like we do the bad parenting thing too, we try to take away the symptoms of the people in our lives, their fear. We try to take away the symptoms of their choices for them in the name of love. If you loved me, you would take away this symptom for me. If you loved me, you would take away this pain, and I forget making, for me. And then we base our relationship based on love being like, oh, you agreed to take away my symptoms and I agreed to take away your symptoms. Instead of asking each other to be 100% responsible for what way we are feeling and what they are feeling. We don't ask that of each other. That's not loving. That's not romantic, we say. You know, you're feeling sad? Oh, that's an interesting choice that you made, and I'm sorry that out of your total and complete power of your mind and responsibility that you chose to feel sad today with me. I'm sorry. I totally support you in choosing again. It's like, you know, that would end our special relationships like, right? The special agreement in our relationships, meaning the fearful, painful agreement that we make in our special, which means painful relationships, is the agreement that we don't ask each other to be 100% responsible for whatever we feel. We don't ask that of each other. We take responsibility for what they have caused out of their own loveless choices. We take responsibility for it, try to take it from them, and then feel guilty about it as if we did it to them. Wow.
We reverse it, don't we? I'm
reverse it.
responsible for you and you're responsible for me.
And we say that that's our romantic agreement. That's our familial or romantic or business agreement. That is what the Course says is the glue that keeps the special, meaning the ego-based relationship together. And the holy relationship, which is the healed, happy, fulfilled relationship, is where both people are taking full risk, are recognizing, realizing the power of their own minds to create whatever they're feeling or experiencing, and they take that responsibility. And both people are doing that. And that's a holy or a healed relationship. And that's the relationship that God and Spirit is trying to help us to have with ourselves as well. And that's why we don't listen very often. Okay. Because I'm looking for the one who will take responsibility for me. Because they love me. And when I tell them they are making me feel the way that I'm feeling Instead of going, well, actually, no, you are responsible for your experience. I'm not making you feel, I can't make you feel. Instead of doing that, they say, oh, I'm sorry. I'll try to do better. And that's the one that I love. And that's the one that I will form that ego partnership with, in some form or another. Wow. Now do you see why more people don't study A Course in Miracles? It just becomes so clear to me every time I teach a class. I'm like, wow, there's anybody here? That's a miracle. Okay. Then he says, he goes on to say the same thing. I would hardly help if I depreciated the power of your own thinking. If I depreciated the power of your own thinking by taking the symptoms of your thought from you, this would be in direct opposition to the purpose of this course. All right. How are we doing? All right. So now we are going to go, he has now explained the problem. He explained how our situation got to be as our situation is, full of pain and conflict and fear. And now he is going to give you the way out, just like he always does. First he describes the problem, then he gives you the answer, always. You look for that in every section. He'll tell you about your ego that's producing all the symptoms that you're experiencing, and then gives you the answer, the way out, through your own thinking. All right, now here it is. It says, it is certainly much more useful to remind you that you do not guard your thoughts at all carefully. Now, in the original, the edited version, it says you don't guard your thoughts carefully enough. What I like what it says here is you do not guard your thoughts at all carefully. Except for a relatively small part of the day. Like for us, if we do our workbook lesson, and we do what it says, there's a small part of the day where we're actually guarding our thoughts carefully, okay? Because that's what the workbook trains you to do. Guard your thoughts. Watch your thoughts. And once you find your thoughts, bring them to the truth. That's what the workbook trains you how to do. He says, so it's not going to be helpful for me to take your symptoms from you, okay? To take your problems from you. But it is more helpful if our teacher says you don't guard your thoughts carefully enough, except for a small portion of the day, if that. That's more helpful for our teacher to do. And not only do you not watch your thoughts at all carefully, except for a relatively small part of the day, but you also do it somewhat inconsistently even then. If you do give a small part of your day to it, maybe you only do it once a week. Or, very inconsistently. Is he describing anybody in here's relationship with the practicing of the course besides mine? Anybody? 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 Okay. He's saying, it's not helpful if I take your problems from you. But it is helpful if I tell you, you don't guard your thoughts carefully enough, except for a very small portion of the day, maybe, and even then very inconsistently. That is helpful for our teacher to remind us of that. Okay? Then he says, and you may feel at this point that it would take a friggin' miracle to enable you to do that. Anybody? And did that thought cross anybody's mind? That would take a miracle for me to do that consistently. And he goes, and indeed, that is perfectly true. It would take a miracle. It will take a miracle. You don't watch your thoughts carefully enough. Maybe occasionally, maybe except for a very small portion of the day, and even then inconsistently. And then you may tell yourself, that would take a miracle for me to do that, right? And he goes, you're right. that would take a miracle, okay? But that's what we're going for. We're going for the miracle. What kind of miracle? The miracle where you guard your thoughts more carefully, more consistently, where you watch your thoughts and you guard your thoughts more consistently, more of the time. That's the miracle we're going for, and that's the miracle that this curriculum facilitates. Thank you, Course in Miracles. That is what enables the miracle to occur. Then it says this. It's perfectly true that that would take a miracle, and that's because human beings are not used to miraculous thinking. But human beings can be trained to think that way. Aha. Oh, that's so nice. Except for the part of me that doesn't want to be trained. I don't want to be trained. I'm awesome as I am now. Right? There's a part of me that doesn't want to be trained. I'm an adult. I have a master's degree. I don't want to be trained like a monkey, like a kid. He's saying that for you to experience the ability to watch your thoughts carefully enough and consistently enough that you stop generating fear and conflict all the time, you are going to have to allow your mind to be trained for what? How to think miraculously. How to think miraculously. Wow. And how do you think miraculously? Watch your thoughts more carefully, more consistently, and then bring them to the truth. That's how you think more miraculously. And the human mind can be trained to think that way. The human mind, your mind can be trained to think that way. I'm so glad. Even though I'm totally resistant about being trained, that's such an insult. That is such an insult to my ego. Anybody else feel insulted by that besides me? Anybody else willing to be honest enough about their ego to say that is insulting to my ego? But the human mind can be trained to think that way, to think miraculously, which means to think in such a way that you stop producing fear and conflict and pain and lack so frequently. That's what I'm going for. And that's what I want. That's why I love the Course. It trains my mind. It trains my human mind. What's my human mind? My ego. My human mind is my ego. And this curriculum trains my human mind how to think miraculously. So that, what are the effects in my life? Miracles. Instead of grievances, instead of conflict, instead of pain and fear. That's why I love the Course. All right. Any questions before we go on?
So this thing of watching your mind or watching your thoughts, you really don't have to. How you're feeling will tell you
Thank you.
what you're thinking.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Just so every time I'm feeling it at all unpeaceful, anxiety or stress, whatever it is,
Exactly.
all that stuff, it seems to me a lot of times we know exactly what's bugging us, and other times
That's
there's
right.
all these little things that it's pretty hard to get to.
That's right.
But is
That's
that
right.
correct, that you don't even really have to know that? You just have to ask, I'm having fearful thoughts here. I would like to think miraculously with you.
Exactly.
Can you just kind of give them up there and get the cure, so to speak?
Exactly. I love that. You don't, you don't have to stop when you're in conflict, stop and go within and go, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? Your behavior or the results, will tell you when you're not thinking miraculously. The Course says that how do you feel is your one right use of judgment. You can start with the feeling. Start with the feeling. I feel like crap. I do not feel good right now. I don't feel happy, I don't feel peaceful, I don't feel healthy. I do not like the way I feel right now. And then from there, and so I must be wrong. I must be thinking not miraculously, I must be having some thoughts that I thought were idle, that I was hoping were idle, that I haven't been looking at. And because I haven't been looking at them and bringing them to the light, guess what? They have manifested. They have manifested in this situation, which sucks, which hurts, which is scaring me. And so now I'm going to engage the process where I stop looking out and I stop projecting out and I stop trying to change my behavior and I stop trying to change everybody else's behavior and I stop and I take my awareness inward. What am I thinking? What do I really want now? Right? That's miraculous thinking. And that's the way out.
So that's where I say, I want to see this another way.
Exactly. First notice, it's like you may not be aware of your thoughts. Of course we're not aware of our thoughts. We have taken our mind and shoved it into the shadows, literally, right? And so, but our negative feelings, our discomfort is always the sign. Because discomfort, even if that discomfort started in pleasure, the discomfort is always your clue that you are thinking something that is not true, that you had or having a loveless thought. The discomfort is your best friend if you want to return to peace. If you want to have your mind healed, if you want to think miraculously so that you can create miraculously, then discomfort is your best friend. It is your true reminder. It's your true reminder. Aha! Because that will always show you what you're really thinking. No, I tell myself I'm thinking one thing, but the results, the effects will always show me. Also, my feelings will always reveal the truth about what I'm really thinking. Right? So don't get upset when you experience those symptoms that seem negative, or you experience that discomfort. Don't fight against that discomfort. When you feel depressed, don't fight against it. When you feel anxious, don't fight against it. When you feel angry, don't fight against it. Use it. Use it. Use it. Use it. That's your best friend. That's your, there's your red flag. I'm thinking a loveless thought. I haven't made up my mind yet. I'm vacillating about what I want. I haven't made up my mind. I've had a loveless thought. Now let me go within and see what I've been thinking that's loveless. And then let me choose and use the power of my mind and the power of my intention to choose again, to choose a loving thought.
And at the time, you don't really have to be your own psychotherapist and determine what thoughts create what realities. All you have to ask is change at the thought level what my thinking is, not change the manifestation of my thoughts.
Exactly, the behavior or the symptom.
And
exactly.
Then really like a bad thought or a painful thought is just a symptom of, a bad feeling is a symptom of a incorrect or mistaken thought.
Exactly, that's right. Exactly.
And so, in a perfect student, you would be monitoring, you were like monitoring your thoughts through, you're on top, what's happening now or whatever.
Right.
And then, so you get a thought, and you want to jump all over it for whatever it is, just, business or whatever. And then you get all excited, and there's that dopamine rush, and you go, I got the best idea ever, but it's always something that you need to filter that through a question, and surrender it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at the very least.
And if it's your thought, then it's probably not going to work.
Exactly. Yeah, at the very least, become aware of what you're thinking and become aware of your thoughts, all of them, before you try to take an action on the physical level. And then, the Course in Miracles workbook is an actual practice. It's a practice that enables you to watch your mind, watch your thoughts more carefully, more consistently. Because if I can watch them more consistently and more actively, then maybe I can catch them before they manifest. And so I don't always end up going, meeting these surprises in my life, like just going along, having a great day, something blows up in my face, something happens, boom, why I didn't expect them to say that, why, I can keep that, prevent that from happening. I can set it up where I'm not always running into unexpected issues or unexpected conflicts, right? I'm not always surprised. Why? Because I'm watching my mind. I'm watching my thoughts, and I have a spiritual practice that helps me to do that so that I can nip them in the bud earlier. I can go, oh, yeah, look at those anger thoughts. Before those manifest, I think I would like to put them into the formula that the Course in Miracles gave me for how to take a fearful thought, take responsibility for it, put it in that formula, and have it come out a miracle. I think I'm going to do that with those anger thoughts before they actually come for me.
Well, am I correct that most of the time we want to change our own thought, and this is just saying, no, you watch your thought, that's all you do.
Thank you, exactly.
You don't try to change it yourself because it was your separated mind that gave you this thought. You have to join with Spirit to get a miraculous thought.
Exactly.
You cannot have one by yourself.
That's right. Exactly. So it's like,
which
really,
is what we always try to do.
Exactly. And the formula is like, I'm responsible for this. What I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, I'm responsible for. Somehow I chose it, even if I don't remember it. Of course I don't remember it. But I chose it. I'm responsible for that. And I was mistaken. How do I know? Because I don't like the way I feel. I was mistaken. And he says, if you will just say, I am responsible for what I'm experiencing and everything I'm feeling and everything that seems to be happening to me, and obviously I was mistaken because there's pain and fear in there, then Spirit does the rest. My part is to take full responsibility, to acknowledge the cause. My part is not to fix the effect. That is not my part. Hallelujah. I can't fix all the effects of my life. I can't fix all the symptoms of my life. I can't fix all the symptoms of my loveless thoughts in my life. I can't.
Right.
But I can take full responsibility for them and acknowledge that I was mistaken. If I'm responsible for what I'm experiencing, I chose these feelings, I decided upon what I've accomplished. Wow, I must be mistaken in what I wanted. I must be mistaken in what I thought I was and what I thought they were. I am mistaken. I must have been mistaken because I do not like the way I feel. I am mistaken. And then he says, and in that point, Spirit goes, right on. Here's the right thought. Here's the loving thought that then goes out from you. The right use of projection goes out in the form of miracles coming out from you and replaces those symptoms, those effects, those negative effects, those things that hurt you and you're afraid of. The miracle comes from you, comes from Spirit through you, and replaces the negative effect, the symptom, with a miracle. Oh my God, it's a miracle. And I know I couldn't have done that. That's how you know a miracle. Something shifts in some problem, and you go, well, I know I couldn't have done that. I know I didn't do that.
That seems to be the common error when we do the formulas. Us trying to fix it ourselves.
Yes.
Instead of,
Us trying to...
you need to, it's It seems we try to make this a self-help book.
That's
And
right.
what it's saying is, no, you can't help yourself.
Exactly.
You are not by yourself.
That's exactly right. You made the fear, you made the problem, so you're going to need to receive the answer. And I love that. So whatever problem you have going on, whatever issue, conflict, stop trying to fix it. And whoever is bugging you, and whoever is annoying you, and whoever your ego is certain is the cause of your discomfort, stop trying to fix them. Stop trying to fix yourself. Stop trying to fix the effects. And start looking at the cause, which is your own thoughts, what you're thinking in your own mind, your own choices about what you want. And go there and start there. And if you'll do that, then the Spirit, Holy Spirit, who is the great corrector of wrong perception, that's what the Holy Spirit is. The Holy Spirit goes, aha, now she's ready. Now she's willing. Here you go. Here's the right thought, which produces the miracle in your world. And I love that formula, because I can do that. I really can. But I cannot fix all my problems. And I certainly can't fix them, obviously. You'd think I would have gotten that by now. Can't fix them. Haven't fixed me. Right? So, but I can take full responsibility. And I can guard my thoughts more carefully. Okay.
Would you say like the workbook is a tool that is purpose is to help us desensitize the triggers to those negative thoughts in a sense where you're correcting those thoughts proactively, not while they're coming up, so you deactivate, whatever that your sensory has a recognition of or a reaction to, like you remember, a tree or something reminds
right.
you of a murder or something. So you desensitize that.
Yes.
And it takes the weight of that emotion.
Yes. It takes it from being a trigger and neutralizes it.
Right, and then you're on to
Exactly.
something closer to the source of your issue.
Yes, of your experience. Exactly. So yeah, I love that when you watch your thoughts more carefully, more consistently, it neutralizes the triggers, okay? Those fearful thoughts, those loveless thoughts that you don't want to look at, they're triggers. They're literally live little triggers in your mind. And every time they get touched by the world, meaning every time you're with somebody and they do something that reminds you of that loveless thought that you have about yourself or others, then it goes off like a gun. It goes off like a trigger. And you go, oh, I can't believe you made me feel that way. Oh my God, this is happening again. Right? And only because the person or the thing reminded you of it, mirrored it to you, and made a trigger go off. And so we're neutralizing those triggers.
Interrupting the cause
Right.
and effect.
Exactly. And
By moving to the source.
exactly, and any thought that I'm trying not to know that I have, anything I'm trying to be in denial about what I think, any loveless thoughts I'm trying to pretend I don't have, any of those thoughts become little live triggers. So everything I'm trying to hide from myself becomes a trigger. Wow. And then it turns out that everything that happens is always triggering me. And I'm always explosive, and I'm always triggered, and I'm always triggered. And then people go, she's so emotional. She's so sensitive. She needs medication. Why? Because there's a lot of unlooked at, unwatched thoughts in there that the more I don't watch them and put them by, the more loaded they become. The more loaded of a trigger they become. Just waiting for anybody to mirror them to me. And then watch out.
Right.
Then
We
this,
go looking for that most of the time.
exactly, and then this innocent person walks in, hey, how's it going? Blah! Like, oh, I'm sorry. Did I mirror something in yourself that you were trying not to look at? I'm sorry. Well, don't do that anymore. Stop mirroring in me things that I'm trying to hide from myself. I do not appreciate that. Stop mirroring things in myself I don't really want to look at. And if you loved me, you wouldn't. All right, so we're going to stop here for today. We're going to do our love offering,
I forgot my purse.
That's all, you are
I'll make
innocent.
it up.
You better, baby. You're totally innocent. All right, so don't forget to go to my website, AnnaKujawa.com, to learn more about my holistic counseling practice. I do Miracle Psychotherapeutic sessions where we take these ideas and we apply them to whatever symptom, whatever effect that you're experiencing so that you can experience and receive the miracle. And so I facilitate those, and you can go to my website and learn more about those. All right. Okay, so now we're going to do our integration meditation. And for 3 minutes, we're going to just apply the ideas to something. Okay, see if you get something to apply the ideas to. So first I want you to just tune in to how you feel right now, having heard these ideas. Just tune into how these ideas feel in your consciousness and in your body. And I want you to bring to your awareness a situation in which there's discomfort, whatever that is, whether it's anxiety, depression, anger, fear, sickness, financial lack, whatever it is, discord in a relationship, pain in your body. I want you to bring that symptom, that effect, into your awareness. Then I want you to tell yourself, this is fear. This is a loveless thought. And I want you to look for a moment at any loveless thoughts that are in your mind that could have produced this symptom, this painful effect. I want you to tell yourself, this fear came from a loveless thought. And then look for that loveless thought. It's okay if you don't see it. Just identify it correctly. Where was I loveless in my thinking toward another or myself? Where was I attacking? Where was I judgmental? Where was I greedy? Where's the loveless thought that this had to have come from? Where's the ego thought? Where is the thought that I have been afraid to look at? And what is it that I've been telling myself about this situation that was unkind? next part of that formula for the undoing of fear and the undoing of this conflict situation is to say the only remedy for lack of love is perfect love. The only remedy for these loveless thoughts is a loving thought. And then I want you to tell yourself, a loving thought is the remedy. A loving thought will be the remedy. A loving thought will be the remedy. And then I want you to ask the spirit within you, the healer within you, ask the healer within you for the loving thought. Spirit of healing within me, show me a loving thought, a true thought. Show me the truth. Show me the loving truth in this situation, in my mind. And listen. And then take note of how the loving thought, the loving truth about the situation, that person or yourself, take note as to how that feels. How does that feel when you receive or see the loving thought, the loving truth? And just breathe that in, let that feeling seep into the cells of your body. And then let's just go ahead and give our internal healer, the internal corrector of our misperceptions, permission. Permission to help us guard our thoughts more carefully and more consistently. Spirit of healing within me, I ask for and give you permission to help me guard my thoughts more carefully. Help me to realize that my mind is a very powerful creator that's creating every instant what I want. Help me to realize that, and help me to guard my thoughts more carefully and to watch my mind more lovingly, more consistently. Amen. All right, and then just bring your awareness back to the room and back to your body. All right, knowing that you just did some good work. All right, you now have fewer triggers, loaded triggers just waiting.